right, this is Midday Talk with Sivu. The time is exactly 1 minute past 1. With us, we have Mr. Afikile Sikwebu. Thank you so much, Budi, for being on our show today.
It's a pleasure, Sisi. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let us read the bio of Mr. Afikile Sikwebu. Afikile is a computer applications technology teacher at Linkside High School. He is passionate about teaching digital technology and believes that every child should be given the opportunity to learn not only to consume technology but also to create with it. Budwam, tell us about why digital technology? Why not maths? Why not economics? Why specifically this?
Okay, thank you for having me once again, as I said, and thanks to your listeners for making this time to listen to me. It is Afikile Sikwebu. Yeah.
Oh God, I'm so sorry.
That's fine. So we live in a digital world. We talk about the digital revolution. I don't think, of all the research papers that I've read in the past 2 years, none of them has not touched on the fourth industrial revolution. We talk about digital natives. We talk about the revolution of doing things digitally. And so we live in a different world to the world that I grew up in. I grew up with pen and paper. I grew up with playing with marbles. I grew up playing on the street. The child today, they want digital devices.
Yes.
And I feel that if we don't prepare this generation for a future that is ahead of them, then we will be doing them a disservice. Of course, I'm not discounting the fact that not everybody is inclined to want to learn programming, for instance.
Yeah.
We have kids who are mathematical. We have kids who prefer economics. We have kids who prefer music. My child, for instance, she couldn't care less about all the computer stuff that she's surrounded with. She doesn't care. She doesn't care about coding. She doesn't care. I've got a lot of toys. I still play with toys. But my child is not that inclined.
Yeah.
So, of course, I'm not putting everybody in one box, but I believe that because of the kind of world that we find ourselves in, it is time that we prepare this generation for a world that I won't even say it approaches them, because it's a world that they're living in. Yeah. So yeah, that's why digital technologies is to prepare them for a future.
So when did the passion for digital technology begin?
Well, I would say it began before I even knew about computers. It began before I even touched a computer, I think. I always take people back to a story that is very, very, I can remember it clearly in my head. I would have been 1994 or 1995. I grew up in the Transkei, I grew up in Umtata, and it would have been around 94, 95, between those 2 years. And I remember I picked up a floppy disk. Now, for the very young learners, they will not know what a floppy disk is. A floppy disk basically was an equivalent of a flash disk.
Okay.
Now.
I didn't know that.
It's the equivalent of a flash disk now. It was a square device, and you could put, I think, maximum 4 megabytes. No, not even 4 megabytes, even less than that. But it was very small, But you could save stuff in it. And at the time, it was written Windows, I'm not sure what Windows it was, but it was written Windows. And I picked up this thing, and I didn't know what it was. So I went home with it. And my sister saw this thing, and she asked me what it was. And I said, no, it's a device to open your windows, And, of course...
When you meant Windows to your sisters, did you mean the window?
I just meant Windows, like literally, it's a device to open windows. And so, of course, she rubbished that. She was a bit older than me. She rubbished it, And time went on. I changed schools. I went to a rural school at the time, which was actually, it was a good school. I loved it there. I went from there to a different school for my high schooling, or it's grade, my grade 9, yeah. So I went to a different school, and they had computers there. And so I really fell in love with computers. That was back in 1997. So that's when the love for computing started. We didn't have programming at the time anyway at the school, but we have what the equivalent of CAT now. So we were forced. There were 2 subjects we had no choice. One of them was computer studies, that's what we called it then, and the second one was mathematics. So we had no choice. It's maths and computer studies. So that's where the whole thing with computers came in. Yeah.
Wow. So did you study at a university level, or you just developed yourself, like you could just do it and then?
So after matric, which was back in 2000, of course, I went to university. Everybody wants to go to university after matric. And I think I would say that my head was not at the right place for going to university at the time, and I had not yet even decided I wasn't even sure what I wanted to do. But I mean, because after matric you go to university. Then I went to university. I went to the University of Transkei, which is WUSU now. So I did a BCom, that's 2001, and I squandered some years, after matric, and did other things as well. But then again, in the year 2012, I felt the Lord saying, you need to go back to do. In fact, this is the word that he used. Return to the junction of your calling.
Wow.
And at the time, I was a youth pastor. And God comes and says, return to the junction of your calling. And as a youth pastor, you think that, wow.
Yes, Lord.
So I had to search, and at the time there's a man that was discipling my wife and I at the time. He still is Professor Ntintili in Umtata. And so when God spoke this word to me, in fact it was 2011, it was actually a process. It was 2011, and that's when God spoke, and we prayed. We took some time to pray about what God had said. And we started praying. That was July 2011. We were praying. 2012, we were still praying. And it would have been the August of 2012 where God literally said, now it is time to drop. And that is the word. It's time to drop. And I knew what it meant. It's time to drop everything that I was doing. And so, cut a long story short, I put a resignation letter to the church that, okay, no, listen, this is what God is saying. Of course, they declined it. And for the next 3 months, they asked me to pray. And the December of that year, I think God had not changed his mind. There's things that happened also subsequently, after the time. But I had also then decided to apply for programming, and I applied at NMU, and they accepted me the December of 2012. After a long process, of course, I really don't have the time to say the things that had happened, the things that he said, the promises that he gave me at the time. So I started doing programming 2013, 14, 15, diploma. 2016, I did my BTech in programming. 2017, I worked for the university, and then I was also finishing a degree that I had paused when God said I must go back to the test, So I was doing a theology degree, So I had paused it, and then I felt I don't want anything hanging over my head. I went back and I finished that. So 2017, that's what I was doing. But yes, I studied for it. Yes.
Wow. So, but you spoke about the fourth industrial revolution. How important is it for us as people to be able to know the computer, like to be able to work with the technology? Because as you said that everything now is electronic. Why is it so important that we should have knowledge about this?
One of the key reasons is the fact of automation. That is where the power of the fourth industrial, well, I don't want to call it the fourth industrial revolution. That is the power of this revolution, is the fact that it is a revolution of automation. It's a revolution of, for lack of a better word, of human replacement. It's a revolution where the computer says, I can do this better than you. I can do it faster than you. Actually, I don't need you. You know, so that's the kind of world that we go into.
Yes.
Where there are certain things that will be, there are certain people that will be replaced. There are certain fields that will be replaced. And it's inevitable that they must be replaced. Look at your studio. You've got a monitor, you've got a keyboard, you've got a few microphones, and it's a room. That's it. Back in the day, you possibly would have a CD cabinet. Look, it's different. It's a different world. So the computer, or rather, computer programming has evolved so much so that I've even read articles where there's computers that learn to program themselves. So it's an exciting thing, but the power of it is in automation. That things are automatic. The computer makes automation possible, and computers really don't make mistakes. You know? So
That's difficult.
For me, if we don't learn this machine that has such power over our lives, then the machine will end up controlling that power.
Oh my God. That statement alone just freaks me out. Okay, so you said that you wanted to be given an opportunity. You wanted children to be given an opportunity to learn, not only to consume technology, but also to create with it. Can you please elaborate on that?
All right. For instance, if you look at an average child, if they have a cell phone, if they have a tablet, if they use a computer, what do they use it for? They will likely use it to download apps. I think the best, well, I haven't used it. I think the in-app now is TikTok, you know. And they think that they are, they are using something that was developed for them, you know. If you look at computer programs, it's a program that was developed for you. If you look at the things that the technology that people use, it is technology that was created for you. I want kids that will learn how to do things, even for others, to change the paradigm of always becoming the consumers of things, to actually be makers with technology. So if you find, even yourself, I mean, you are just a user of apps. You don't know how these apps are created. You wouldn't know if it broke, how to fix it, you know. I want a generation where breaking is part of the norm. Let's break it and fix it, you know, and see how it works. So that is what it's all about to me. They need to start learning to create things for themselves. I mean, just the other day, yesterday actually, I did a self-watering plant. So we've got a plant. Instead of me going to water it all the time, I've got a sensor in the soil that will sense when the soil is dry,
Wow.
and then it will start watering. When the soil reaches a certain temperature, it will stop. You know, so I could go and buy that system. I don't know how much it costs, but if I can make it for what it cost me, $200, even less. Well, this kit didn't even cost me because it was sponsored to me. You know, I mean, when I looked at the things, they don't even cost more than $200. You know, so our kids are not makers. If I look at my day, for instance, we didn't have. I'm not going to say we didn't grow up poor, but we didn't have spare money. So we didn't have spare money for toys.
Yes.
So we would make clay bricks or clay tractors. Dongwe. Yes, dongwe, you know. We would make clay cows. We would make clay dogs, clay houses. We used to play with face brick. I mean, if you had a face brick, it was the Mercedes of bricks. If you had a normal brick, it was a cheap, you know. So it was, you know. So we played with things that we found. We made wire cars. We used to play with tires. You take two sticks and you put inside a tire, and you put sip-sap containers at the end. So we made stuff, you know. We made with what we had. And what do these kids have in their hands? They have technology. If you look at, I'm not going to preach, but if you look at also if you look at Jesus, when the disciples came to him and said, these people want to eat, you know, let's send them away. He asked them, what do you have in your hand? And to me, it's what do these kids have in their hands that they can use?
Wow. You know, when you're touching on the word, you are making me because oh my God. Okay, so you are a teacher at Linkside. Do they have this platform that you are talking about to actually do this thing that you are saying, like to be able to teach children, or is it just focusing on more on the computer side? And then, okay, let's first answer that question because there's something I want to ask.
Oh, okay. I've been very privileged in the sense that I'm not saying this because possibly my principal is listening, but I work at a place where I was given a platform to say, look, knock yourself out, you know.
Wow.
So yes, we have the platform. We will have the computer systems, and I have, for instance, I'm going to say this. I hope my principal is listening. We have a small budget for things for me, you know, where I can go and blow money on toys, and if I can mention something also, but I come from also a department from the Nelson Mandela University. What is it? Department of ICT. You know, I worked with a professor there, also Professor Van Vrienen from the CCT. You know, who had been very kind to sponsor some of the toys that I have. You know, and so these are things that even the school is prepared to say, look, if you want to buy this, here's some money, go and buy this thing. So long as it is to benefit the children. So yes, I have the platform at the school. It's there. It's not yet perfect. It's not where I would like to see it, but we have. It's the platform is there. Yeah.
All right. So this only caters for students who are at Linkside. What about students who would love to get to know technology and be taught, you know, but they are not students from Linkside? What can you do for those children?
Okay, now that's a very, very nice question. So I hope my deputy principal is not going to slice me, but yeah, I'll mention this. So when I went for my interview, at my previous work, what had happened is that I was also, they just said, break your leg. Here's the budget, break your leg. So,
your favorite.
So I started a program called Learn to Code, and I was an itinerant teacher. So I would go to. We first started in Galvindale, at a center there, it didn't pick up very well because we were looking at at the time we were looking at high school kids, and no offense to for what I'm going to say, but I just found that on a Friday in Galvin, at the place where we were, kids don't want to come and be learning.
Okay.
No offense to the people in that area. And so I then shifted my energy to primary schools during school time. And it would then be schools with a computer lab that were not being used. Schools without a computer teacher, and part of the requirement was that they will give me then people that I would train. So I adopted a few schools. I think at the time I started with 3, and then it was subsequently 2, where I had access. They gave me access to the learners. They gave me access to their computer labs, and I had to first make sure that all the computers were working. Those that needed to be upgraded, I upgraded them. And I had 2 principals who were very, very supportive and who wanted their children to learn. And it was once a week for 1 hour. And after 2 years, I realized that it was actually not sustainable, because I have these kids for 1 hour a week, and that's it. They go back home. They don't have any tech at home. They don't have time to practice, and they will forget. And so when the opportunity came to go to Linkside, I grabbed the opportunity because now I would have a platform where the kids they are at school. But part of my agreement with the leadership at the school was that they would allow me to finish off with some learners in Shoda that I had started when I shifted to primary schools. I think they were in standard 3, and then they agreed that those learners could come to our school to take part in our coding club. So my deputy principal would then, on Tuesday, go to Shoda, fetch the kids, bring them to our school. They come and we have the program. Then she takes them back, and I'm quite grateful for that. So she took that responsibility upon herself to go and fetch the children and also take them back to their schools. But then, of course, COVID happened, and those core kids have now moved to different schools, because they were grade 7 last year, so they've since moved to different schools. So to then answer your question, we're not limited to our kids only. We are open to collaborations with other primary schools that need services like this. There are other people here in PE that we can call upon to say, look, there's a need at such and such a school. If you need training, we can offer that kind of training. So if there's schools that say, look, we would like our kids to maybe come to you guys, of course, COVID regulations will have to be then addressed. I think we are more than open to those kind of collaborations. I understand that I cannot be everywhere, but if there's schools that are keen, we've got open doors, to say, bring your kids. We'll look at a time and we'll look at how we can take it further.
All right. So what happens if someone like me, for example, not a student, so and I want to learn, what do you do with people like that?
It depends, really. It depends what you want to learn. What I found is that YouTube is a great teacher. Okay. There are platforms that I can lead you to, where it's easy for you as an adult to learn. I haven't heard people that have approached me to learn. It's just a few parents who have said, look, my child has been doing this coding program and now she's telling me things I don't know. So I am thinking about, how do I now offer these lessons to parents so that they can teach their kids? But yeah, I haven't really had a lot of parents or a lot of adults who say they want to learn. But yeah, YouTube is a start. If there's anyone then who would like that kind of information of what to learn or where to start, I can through you guys, they can send that information on your Facebook chat, on your Facebook group, and I would be glad to answer their questions.
All right. So, Budin, how important is it that? Okay, let me ask it like this. You mentioned that people are going to be replaced by computers. And in fact they are already. So, what can you advise people who are still in high school, or who are going to apply to universities? What can you say that jobs they can look at that will not make them to be replaceable by computers?
Yeah. Let me let me change let me rephrase and put it under threat. One will never go wrong with mathematics. Okay. Unfortunately, our children don't like mathematics.
It's difficult.
Maths is not. Look, it's not difficult. It's how we were raised. We were raised to think that it's difficult, but okay. I don't think maths is difficult. It's an application of logic, and maths, you will never go wrong with maths. Do I think that computers will take over the arts? I don't really think they will take over the arts. They might not. But my take on that would be learn as much as you can. I was on Monday. I went to a guy out in Cotswold. I was just want to make an example of something here. I went to a guy in Cotswold. He has a 13-year-old son. And this 13-year-old son, during the lockdown, when the lockdown started, he realized he was bored. And he went into his dad's garage and he saw, his dad, I think he fixes motorbikes. And he played around, and his dad allowed him to play around. That boy, less than a year, can now take a motorbike apart. An engine, the whole thing. I was watching him. He can take it apart and put it back together at 13 years of age. And this is things that he learned on YouTube.
Wow. And
he learned by watching his dad. So do I think that computers will come and fix our blocked toilets? No. Our kids need, or rather, let me put this out for parents, that know your child. My child is not into tech. She's into the arts. And so my responsibility as a parent is to promote her as much as I can and get her into the arts as much as I can, because I have seen the direction that she's going. As a programmer, I would love her to program, but I don't want to force her to do something that is going to frustrate her. And I have seen frustrated children because they are forced to do this thing. They're forced to learn this subject. They're forced to just be the best in your field. If you are musical, go and learn music. Don't tell me you are going to sing, let me not mention genres here. Don't tell me you are going to be a star, or a TikTok star, or a YouTube star. No, go and learn your trade. If you want to go to plumbing, go and learn and be good at plumbing. If your child is strong in writing, promote your child to go and learn to write. While there are things or professions that are under threat from computers, there are some that computers, it will take some time before they get to that stage. It will take some time. So learn, number one. If you're in high school, learn. Just keep learning and be the best in your field. Every step in primary school, we prepared you for high school. In high school, we prepare you for university. University is supposed to prepare you for work. Be the best, or learn to be the best for yourself.
Wow. I heard they were also making robots.
COVID happened. We have some. We have some robots, but then COVID happened before we got to that stage. So there's certain steps before we get to the robot stuff. We still first need to teach them the logic of programming, and then we can take them to building the robots and coding them. So yeah, we do have. It's not a lot, but we do have some.
Yeah, Lord help us. Robots are coming. All right, Mr. Afikile, thank you so much for so much insight. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to share with us before we wrap up, but we would like to say this, that we thank you. You have opened our minds to another dimension. We truly appreciate you as the Agape team. Thank you so much. We are enlightened, but before we wrap it up, what would you like to tell our listeners?
Simply this. I think this is a scripture that everybody knows and everybody likes to quote. I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. And then we quote the end. We quote to the end.
Yes.
And while God says He knows the plans He has for us, have we engaged God in what His plan is for us? For 8 years, I was a youth pastor, and it was great. I loved it. It was perhaps some of the best times of my life.
Yes.
And was that the plan God had for me?
Wow.
And so sometimes we want to fit into people's molds and not in God's mold, because we have not engaged God on what His plan is for our lives. So for our listeners out there, especially young people who may be at a place where they say, I don't know what I'm going to be, or I don't know what I want to do. The start is to engage God. God, you say you know the plans you have for me. What are these plans?
Wow, my
and
God.
Then you allow God to take you through the process of the manifestation of those plans.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's really it. And I've really seen quite a lot of frustrated people, and part of it is because people don't know the purpose of their lives, and it's because they've never asked God.
Wow. And there's a scripture that says, if a salt loses its saltiness, I love the Amplified Version, it says its purpose. How can it be revived again? Meaning that if we lose our purpose in life, then we have lost our sense of living. And that is why we end up being so frustrated. My word, I'm so blessed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. We truly appreciate having you once again. And yes, may the Lord richly bless you. We pray that this idea and this dream, this passion of yours, it really grows to cater even for everyone at every level, because truly we are revolving, times have changed. Thank you so much once again, The Lord
you.
bless you.
Thank you very much.
Listeners, we thank you so much for tuning in. This is Agape